Hi, my name is Beth Hiley here for BoardGameGeek, and I'm here with Amanda Irvin from Game Brewers, and you've brought us a title that was, I think, probably made a pretty big splash on Kickstarter, I believe, last year, or maybe very early 2020. You'll have to help me with the dates on that. But this is Paris, which is a joint effort between Michael Kiesling and, help me out here, I just blanked out on the other one.
Kramer.
Thank you. Oh, for shame. So Amanda, if you could just kind of take us through a little bit of how Paris either came to be as a project, or if you want to dive in and talk to a little bit about how to play.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of both. So Paris was on Kickstarter mid-March 2020. There was nothing else going on at the time. So it was a great time to launch a Kickstarter. But it did do really well, and we're very thankful for the amount of support that we saw for this game. It is from Kramer and Kiesling, so of course it's very exciting for most European audiences, and Spiel audiences know the name Kramer and Kiesling. We found in the States not quite as much, but pretty classic Euro designers. And so they had this design that they came up with actually probably a few years ago, and it took a while to play test and kind of really fine tune it into what it is now. And it's a really nice, elegant, kind of very classic feeling Euro game. And it, as you can see, it is a round board. It's the Arc de Triomphe in the center, and the streets of Paris leading away from the Arc de Triomphe into the different districts. And the object of the game is to populate the districts with buildings, buy the buildings, and have kind of a control of the area in each of the districts, as well as when you have less control in some of the buildings, you have access to the outside track, which is that round track on the outside that gives bonus actions and bonus ways to score points. So the balance between the two and the choices you need to make there make the game Paris. So that's sort of the general overview.
And you can see that Lincoln's been kind of twirling around those pieces that have a 3D component. Each of the player houses, I guess I would call them, are very much in the Parisian style, within a wonderful 3D pop-up of the Arc de Triomphe in the middle there.
Yes, they disassemble, so you can put them back in your box. But they are just to keep your pieces hidden, and a lot of those bonus tiles that you get on the outside can be kept secret inside your beautiful Parisian street house there. And if we want to play through a little bit of a round, we can do that here with Lincoln. The board right now, you don't see any of the buildings on any of those district spaces, because at the start of each turn, players are going to take from one of the piles of houses, and it looks like there might be 5 piles there. Usually there's 3 piles of the tiles, so you can see the backs of 3 of them and choose from 3. And then you know which district the building's going to go in, but you don't know which number it is. And the numbers go from 1, 2, 3 to 4, 5, and 8. So that'd be a 2 in that district. And so there's different colors that mean the different types of buildings. We have a theater and a little cafe and a hotel. Each of them are different than all the, they're just like, each of them, like the art was by Andreas Resch, and each one's a little painting of Paris. It's, once the board is populated, it's truly a sight to behold. But so you would choose from one of those tiles and you add it to one of the district sections. And that's not your action. That's just something each player does to slowly populate the board through the first half of the game. So yeah, he would add it to the board, and now his action is a worker action, a key action. So each player has these little keys to the city or keys to the district. There you go, there's a nice one. And it would first have to go to the bank to get a loan. And each of the districts has their own bank, and they have different values from 2 to 8. And or 7, when you go in those districts, you place your key and you take your money, and that's the end of your turn. In the future, once you have the keys out on the board in those banks, they now belong to that district. And instead of taking money or adding a new key, you can buy buildings as long as they're already in that particular district that your key is in. And the cost, which is that number on the building, you pay in francs, and then you place your key on the building, and now you own 2, 4, 8 share, if you will, in that district for control. For the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, there's also a little symbol on those tiles in the upper left-hand corner that lets you move on that outside track. And it's like it's a little looks like one of the bonus tiles. That's a 3, so it actually also costs you 2 francs to go on the outside. The 8 does not have that, but it gives you 2 points, and it does cost a wood to build. The resources are found on the 4, 5, and 8 tiles, the wood, the marble, and the gold. And when you buy a building on there, you take those resources. On the 1, 2, and 3, there's the prestige resources instead. And I got lost, but you're buying the buildings to go on the outside track. So the 1, 2, and 3, you get those prestige tokens, which we'll come back to those, but you can move around the outside of the board in a circle. So there's a start point near the beginning of the track. It goes in order 1 to 30. And when you move, you can go as far along that circle as you want to take any one tile, but you can never go backwards. So the whole game and the tactics of it is how far in advance you go. There's most of the tiles only have one of them, and some of them are quite powerful. So do you jump far ahead so you have that powerful tile, but you're giving up some of the resources and other things that came earlier in the game. But the choice is yours. You can go as far as you want, but only can go around 1 time. So if I jump to 10, I'm giving up 1 through 9, but I still have 11 through 30 if I am able to move on the track again in the future to move my way around. It is with a 2-person game, I find that track is a little more open and easier to move around, and maybe where more points are coming from. With 4 players, both the majorities as well as the movement on the track become a lot tighter and harder to move around. So the knowing when to move up in each of the different player counts also changes drastically throughout the game. And the bonus tiles themselves have a lot of in-game scoring. There's actually only 1 end-game scoring tile. The rest of this has to be, you keep them behind your screen and you choose when to play them based on where your pieces are in the center of the board at any given time, whether you have keys on all the 1 buildings, or not all, but a lot of 1 buildings or 4 buildings, or you have a lot of unused bonus tiles. There's even a bonus tile that gives you points for your unused bonus tiles. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can play around with on the outside track. Now back to the majority scoring. So you're placing your keys out on the buildings, paying for them, and you add up. You can have your keys, multiple keys in 1 district. So if I put 4 keys in 1 area, I would add up the number value of all the buildings that are on my from my keys, and that's the strength that I have in that area. At the end of the game, you will score areas if the little score tokens have been added to the board, which is another tactical play, because the person who builds the 4th building in each district can choose to take one of the scoring tiles and add it to any one of the districts. So maybe I build the 4th building in a district I'm not even invested in, but that gives me the right to choose one of the scoring tiles to put it in a different district that I do have maybe a strong majority in. So there's reasons why you want to build in districts that you're not even fighting for or contesting. The last thing to really talk about are the landmark buildings, which are, of course, the most beautiful buildings of Paris, the Notre Dame and the Eiffel Tower. Oh, it's the Notre Dame right there. Perfect. The Eiffel Tower. And so these are the things that still stand in Paris today. Well, mostly that you can go look at. And the way that you get those is they're not attached to any one district. They're going to go above the districts in those gaps in between the spots of the bonus track. So you can still pay for them with the cost that is in the bottom right. They're just more expensive. And the resources that are in the top right. And but you can also choose which district it is in. So you're working in 1 district, you can add any of those landmarks to that district because you're stuck in that district with your key. One thing, since they're so expensive, whenever you have a key in a district, you can always upgrade your key to higher level buildings. So because it's 15 million francs to build that building, if I'm already on the 8 and I choose to go on the 15, I'd actually only have to pay 7 francs, the difference between the two, to upgrade, which is nice. You kind of want to build your way up in each district. That would give me a strength of 15 within that district. I, of course, lose the 8, leaving it open for another player to come and move in there. But when you build them, that's where those prestige tokens you got on the 1s, 2s, and 3s can be exchanged for points. So on the side of those landmark tiles, there was silver, copper, and gold, and you can exchange none. You don't have to, but of course you want to time it so that you do, and you're able to exchange with the top one there, 15, you'd be able to exchange 1 silver for 4 points and 2 gold, up to 2 gold for 5 points each. If you have all 3, that's the best. If you have 1, that's still good. You still get those points.
Now
and that is the landmark scoring, and that's pretty much the. I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
Let's talk about the Arc de Triomphe in the middle, because that also is a space where you can put your keys.
It's true. So this has if can't really quite see, but each of the banks has a different value. I said it was 2 to 7. Those are the ones that give you money. But the Arc de Triomphe has a 0 value on it, but it is still considered a bank. But it does not belong to any one district. So it's a very tactile place that you can choose to put one of your keys. If you place it on there and you get no money, but then in a future turn, you're kind of watching each of the different districts and you're like, oh, I really wish I had a key in that district, because I could buy the 4th building, or because there's nobody involved in it except one person, so I could get the points for the 2nd strongest area, and I can choose to move my key from the Arc de Triomphe onto one of the 6 districts.
Yeah, I found that mechanic really interesting. So it's sort of like, I'm going to hedge my bets, I guess, and park it here in the middle, which doesn't get me anything now, but then I'm poised to jump into any district at an opportune moment, hopefully to make magic happen.
Yeah, so there's so many things that are just really work together and kind of really flow very elegantly. The turns are really fast, like you're just putting out a key or you're buying a building, and you're not sort of, I mean, of course there's some thinking involved, but there's not 7 steps to each of your turns. It's really thinking about how to use your keys to the best of your ability. And yeah.
Well, oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was gonna say, if since I think we've kind of done a nice overview to give people a feeling of what it's like to play, I'd love to switch gears slightly and maybe talk a little bit about the development. Particularly for me, I'm always a sucker for talking about artwork. You guys got Andreas Reich, who is prolific in artwork for board games, but I had to look it up. I didn't realize this was him, because this was a much softer pastel. Like, it's a beautiful, dreamy feeling to the artwork in this, and that wasn't one that I had associated with him in the past.
Yeah, it was Raphael is our art and graphic design coordinator, and he works miracles in working with designers and kind of seeing if they're interested. And in fact, I came on with Game Brewer right around when all this had already been worked out, so I'm a little rusty on some of the details, but I believe, you know, he was like, this is what we're working on, here's kind of what's happening, and Paris is a place that I believe Andreas had a good interest in, and was like, oh no, actually I do want to work on this project. I really want, especially at that time period. And he really did create each one, like, just looks like a little mini painting. He would send them to us, like, kind of like 2 or 3 at a time, and we're like, new paintings have arrived, and it just looked like doling out candy. But and then when they're once, like, halfway through the game is about when all the places are going to be populated, and it just kind of, like, right now it looks a little gray, but at that point in person it just pops with color, because they're pink and green and blue, and it just it really stands out. And yes, so I think he was something that he was directly interested in helping with, and it is a lot more muted, but I think he went for the style of slightly impressionist art, maybe.
Yes, no, that's exactly how I would describe it as well. But and it also, to me at least, evokes that feeling of the kind of watercolor street art that is so iconic of Paris, that you just, you kind of walk down the sidewalk and almost trip over someone who's selling artwork.
Yeah. So no, it's really lovely. We also had an interview that was just a written interview because he didn't have the technology to do it in person with Wolfgang Kramer, and that is posted on our Spiel booth. But some of the details there were really interesting. He sent pictures of the prototypes of him and Michael Kiesling as they were building Paris. It wasn't always round. They sort of started out with more of a grid pattern, like street grids. And then it kind of evolved into a star shape, and it then found its way to Paris because they started looking for cities and countries that had a star design. And they even sent, in the article, there's a overview of Paris, and it looks like that because it's got the Arc de Triomphe, and then the streets really do just spread out from the center location.
I feel very lucky. I have actually been there, and I've stood on the top of the Arc de Triomphe, and so it's exactly true. You turn in different directions, with different compass points, and it's just straight street like that. That is literally what it feels like. So to see this from the overhead, and Lincoln is very nicely populating the city for us, so we get an idea of what it looks like when it's all filled up with buildings, to kind of give you that really aerial view of that section of Paris itself. That's fascinating, that to come across a star-ish shaped design in a game, and then to find a city that would match that. So the theme would naturally just dovetail directly into the mechanics, is a lovely marriage between theme and gameplay. Now, the thing I'm also curious about too is for you guys starting a Kickstarter in the beginning of quarantine, and then fulfillment within less than a year. I mean, that is impressive regardless. It is extra impressive given that supply lines and shipping options are still quite tumultuous nowadays. That's an impressive feat.
We were doing great until near the end. So I know our Kickstarter backers, if you're watching, we know that some of you are still waiting, and they know we've sent updates, but there was some issues in customs and with cyber attacks on the from the fulfillment center, and so we'd been doing real great until the last couple weeks, and then it kind of hit a few roadblocks that have. But yes, we were quite pleased thus far at how to go from getting it in, and just it took a lot more scheduling, and our team in Belgium, because Gaming Brewers almost all in Belgium, were able to kind of plan ahead and coordinate and try to come up with backups, and so it's been a year, but we're very pleased that Paris is making its way to homes and shelves within 2020.
That's a nice segue also for those who weren't able to back it on Kickstarter. How are they? And let's talk both, probably the European audience and the American audience, how they would be able to get their hands on Paris, and maybe a rough estimate of when it might be available.
Well, right now, during Spiel, we are doing a special on our website where you can get any of our games 10% off for one, 15% off for two, 20% off for three, and there's even some of our older games are all the way to 50% off, and the shipping in Europe and North America, being Canada and the US, free freight, free shipping on some of our newer titles. So the other way is that we will be in your friendly local game stores in Europe and the States. If you ask your friendly local game store and they don't have it, it'll be carried by GTS distributions. They can get it and have them order it there, get some copies to support those small local businesses. I, also working part-time with Blue Highway in Seattle, feel very strongly about supporting your small local businesses. So please do order Paris there, as well as directly from Game Brewer's website. Of course, right now through tomorrow, you have those special deals. So,
why don't you share Game Brewer's website?
GameBrewer.com.
Easy enough. In our final 6 or 7 minutes ish. Was there anything else coming up from Game Brewers also that you might be willing to highlight, if you have secrets that you can share of upcoming projects, either for very late 2020 or a preview of things into 2021?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Gugong expansion, also just released as a Spiel release, Panjun, which is also going to have retail distribution just like Paris. But then our next Kickstarter that we have announced and even has a picture on BGG is Rule Benders, which is a theme traveling game where you, not time traveling, but you're changing and moving through different themes throughout the game, and players can try to strategically control when they'd switch the theme or how easy it is to bump between one or two. And it's a light, casual, kind of fun card game. It's got a board and a box, but you play it with cards and actions with cards. And then a little bit more forward, things that will be popping up on BGG soon, because we're almost ready to announce them, are a game called Hippocrates or Hippocrates. It's said differently in Belgium, I think. Actually, this game, Paris, my coworkers all call it Paris, of course. I'm always like, yeah, it's Paris. What are you talking? Oh, right, Paris. But Hippocrates and Hippocrates is a game that is coming out that's going to be about ancient time doctor and patient relationships. So think ancient Greece. Early medicine, very early. And then another game called Stroganoff, which will be a mid-weight Euro moving through the steeps of Kazakhstan or Russia. And that it will be our first Kickstarter of 2021, we expect. And lastly, our Amusa games will be going direct to retail, which is a kind of our family imprint of games for kids and families ages 8+. And that's Pizza, Circus, and Bugs in early 2021.
You've got a question from the chat. Will there be a deluxe kit to upgrade the pieces of Gugong from the retail version up to, probably the Kickstarter version or the deluxe version?
Don't think so, but don't take my word on it. So I'm again in the States, so I don't always know all the ins and outs that are. But I believe the Panjun Deluxe big box and everything expansion was sort of a Kickstarter exclusive. So I don't think there will be but you never know. I mean, in the future we could do another. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, and I just want to draw our attention because Lincoln has set up all but one district, so people kind of get an idea of what the filled districts look like versus the beginning, the start of the game. So that top district is still empty, but all the other ones have now been populated with the beautiful artwork by Andreas. Just to show a little love back to the board and graphic design and artistry.
Thank you. It is pretty.
Anything else that you felt like you wanted to share, either about Paris or other things for Game Brewer?
Just that we are very thankful for all of our Kickstarter backers. This year has been crazy, and we couldn't have done it without you. Especially, we had another one, Arkwright the card game, in the summer that will be released later in 2021. And lots of support for that one as well. And we were very excited to get some new partners in the States with Eagle Griffin for releasing that one. Kind of in between, not a new release, not something we surprised to talk about, and it's already been funded, but yeah, Arkwright the card game. And yeah, so very thankful for the support that we've seen from our fans, and I hope everybody gets a chance to play some games this winter.
I know. I love that we all have similar tastes in backgrounds while we're filming, right?
Seems appropriate.
It never goes out of style, just having a wall of games behind you. Well, Amanda, thank you. It was a delight being able to talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of Paris, but also how to play and a preview of some things coming out with Game Brewers. And I'm. This isn't quite the interview format that we're familiar with, but I think it's nice to be able to give you guys a little bit more time to be able to explain some things in detail. And I hope people who are watching this either now or later are able to learn a few things about Game Brewers. So thank you again.